I'm not away.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for being here. This is a town hall. It's different than a city council meeting, different than another forum. It's an open dialogue, open communication, Robert's rules of order, parliamentary procedure aren't necessarily part of this. It's a town hall where people in the community get to learn stuff, share stuff. City members, city employees get to share their expert knowledge on questions that you may have, of course, that as it pertains to ICIP. Thank you so much. Or if this isn't working, does it make a difference?
Yeah.
Can you hear it? I can't hear it.
I can see, but
Okay, awesome. So it allows us to interact with each other, and we're going to talk about the ICIP program. And we'll talk about what it is. If you could bring up these slides real quick. That way I can kind of use them as a crutch as I talk about this for the next few minutes. Okay, so ICIP program and how it's important to us in the city of Portales. And then we'll talk about how you are and your input is important to the city of Portales as well as we do this. Next slide, please. So the infrastructure capital improvement plan is a 5-year planning tool used by Mexico municipalities. I'm sorry if I'm treating you like you can't read. Go ahead and take a look at the slide for a few seconds and then we'll just talk about these bullets. It's a top-driven program, meaning the New Mexico Department of Finance, I believe that is DFA, prescribes this as a structured tool and program for us to identify, prioritize, and then submit what we see are infrastructure improvements over a 5-year period of time. It stands for 5 years. We are required to update it annually and then submit our changes or as it rolls and goes forward. It helps prioritize. It helps get the word out there to agencies that would help us with grants, and whether they're federal or state or other. And it outlines these things and it helps us secure money for municipalities. A lot of times people think a city has money and they really don't. Cities don't have they do, but they really don't. The kind of money that it takes to manage a city or a county, we don't really have those in the banks. Those come from other things. They come from grants and other things like that. And these are one of the tools that help us get on the board and secure those large sums of money in many cases, sometimes not so large, but in a structured manner, and to compete with other municipalities to be able to get on the board and get those funds to do things that we need for the infrastructure of our city to guarantee a good city infrastructure in the out years, 10, 20, 30, and 40 years. Okay. I mentioned before, it's managed by the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, and it really is essential for securing state, federal, and other funding. Next slide, please. Portales is a city. We use this to identify and prioritize infrastructure needs, and read the rest of the bullets because, again, I'm insulting you by assuming you can't read. I apologize for that. You can. Any questions subject to this slide? It lays out the structure. It's top loaded. It's prescribed by the state, and we need to follow it. But one of those prescription things is we're supposed to have feedback from the community on these, and a good, healthy ICIP will have a good, healthy amount of feedback from the constituents of any municipality so that we work together to identify our needs and then prioritize them, rack and stack them. And racking and stacking becomes important. We'll explain that in a little bit. Next slide, please. No, let's go back one. Did we jump forward one? Back one slide, please. Okay, that's the importance. Next slide. I think I'm off. Okay, so there's some really big types of funding out there, and the Capital Outlay Program, or the CAPS, is one of those. Now, that's a very complicated program. I would not do it justice to try to explain it right now. It is monies that the state has that the state can delegate to municipalities in different fashions based on the governance and the seats of the Congress and House, if I have that correctly. Then those monies go down through some other tiers and they become available through our representatives. But those representatives and the programs that they're delegated to be basically fiscal agents, they look at our ICIP submissions to determine whether we're going to get some of that money or how much of that money we're going to get or how it racks and stacks compared with other municipalities in the districts of those elected officials. So in the capital outlay program, to ensure or to make us more competitive and viable for our shares going forward of the capital outlay program from New Mexico, ensure we have a good, healthy, and viable ICIP program. Next slide. Water Trust Board, another huge agency, lots and lots of money. Water Trust Board, by the way it's structured, also uses our submissions as a consideration on where we stack up on securing money through the Water Trust Board based on our submissions and our viability in our ICIP program and the way it's put together. Water Trust Board uses that as one of the rulers, one of the metrics on how much we get, how often we get it, and how we compete with other municipalities within the Water Trust Board's area of expertise or reach, if you would. Next slide, please. EPCOG. Lots of money available through EPCOG, and believe it or not, EPCOG also uses ICIP data to determine where we rack and stack as far as their allocations or their support as we seek different types of funding. So you can start to see a trend here. Basically, if there's monies available to us that isn't our own, and we have access to that, it's in our best interest to have a good, a viable, and healthy ICIP program so that we can compete for these funds. Next slide. Administered by DFA. Top loaded, they say we will use this. They make changes, we change with it. We do what we're supposed to do. We get higher marks, we get higher recognition. We rack and stack efficiently, correctly, and we put it in accordance with their guidance, and then we're more viable and more competitive for the funding that's available. Next slide, please. Conclusion slide, you can read that on your own. I think I've kind of put it all together. Basically, ICIP is important. Having community involvement is important. Racking and stacking this to the benefit of the city so it becomes more competitive in these major funding sources is important. This is how we get stuff done. Everything costs money. Business cards, Bibles, roads, fixing potholes, planting trees, anything you can think of costs money. Nothing's for free. It gets very expensive at municipal levels. And this is where the big money comes from, and that access, that portal to secure this in quantities and sizes that are needed for a municipality like the city of Portales are dependent, not solely, but highly on how efficient we are at managing this program. And that's why we're here this evening. Okay. So are there questions? Subject questions? Good ideas? This is a town hall, guys. This is a relaxed environment. No parliamentary procedure. Comments, welcome, back and forth, dialogue. We're not restrained by that. So yes, sir.
So are you that? Is it equivalent of a credit rating? Whereas the city can do this extremely well or not too well, depending on the professionalism of our departments?
I think that the comparison to a credit rating, I mean, I'm not so sure about that one per se. I would say that the more efficient we become at doing this, the more practice we have at doing it, the more regimented we are, not in a bad way of regimentation, but the more frequently we have these kind of meetings, the more we address these types of things, the more we look at this through the eyes and the lens that this is the portal to get the money that's available. And the more efficient we become at doing it, the more the money will flow and the more we'll have on a more regular basis. That's what I would say. The credit rating, I don't think you're wrong. I think that's through a specific lens, but that's not kind of the one I'm looking through right now. I think this is a top-loaded function that we need to do and learn to do it well. And then by learning to do it well, we'll be more competitive for monies that are available. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Senator, representatives, and what they have available and how well we communicate with them project, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the thing is that the more I've worked on this and being a part of this committee, there's only a certain amount of money out there, and every community is asking for more than the total pot. Every single community, including us. So this year, we worked really hard to try to narrow down what we're sending in for this specific next upcoming year.
Right.
And move everything else down, and then each year we'll keep pushing those top 15 or so. Because one of the complaints that I've heard we've gotten in the past is that we have 65 things on there and they just kind of roll their eyes. Go on to the next one.
You bet. So do we, there was a slide on there when it talked about the capital outlay program. So the capital outlay program, there's a lot of money available. There might be a lot of money available in it, a lot more money available in a different funding stream. But in the capital outlay program, what that says is you're more likely to get capital outlay funded projects if in your ICIP, the things that you're asking for via capital outlay are in your top 3 in your ICIP. Okay, that's cool. But if the capital outlay program doesn't have $65 million available for municipalities, then we have to look at this through a lens, right? We have to look at 1, 2, and 3, maybe targeted at capital outlay. But then for bigger funded projects that would cost more money, we might have to look at our 4, 5, and 6 as really our 1, 2, and 3 for something like the Water Trust Board. But we got to make sure they're placed strategically. And that's where I'm saying, Mr. Davidson, we have to get good at it. We have to understand it, we have to get good at it, and we have to acknowledge and separate, or not separate, but celebrate our victories, right, on getting it right, and then do more of that going forward.
Also, and you have your top 3 up there, and you might get one of those allocated to you.
Yes.
The next year, if the other 2 that were up there in that top 3 get dropped off, you move something else up, do they look back at that and say, what happened to the other 2? Why aren't you asking for that?
I don't think so. As long as it's still on the list, we're allowed to reprioritize, 1. But 2, depending on the funding source, it could make a difference, right? Now let's talk about like EPCOG grants, some of the grants through EPCOG that they sponsor. I can't remember which grant it is, but that goes, if you get awarded a grant this year, you're not really competitive on the next year. You can apply, but you're not prioritized. So we have to get good at learning that rhythm and where to reprioritize things so we do it efficiently. You know, I watched I can't talk. I watched the Little League World Series, and there's some really good baseball players there, good kids playing really good baseball. But the teams that won were the ones whose coaches knew the rules really, really well, because the coach got in there and called the playbook, not the balls and strikes, but the box and different things like that, knew right when to change the pitchers, change out key players. So knowing when to make your adjustments with your key players really wins that World Series. And that's what I learned. I don't know much about baseball, but I learned that by watching the Little League World Series. It's just as important to know the game as it is to teach, coach, mentor good players. And the team that has both of those together generally wins more games. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Yes, sir.
So with this being our master plan, like there's lots of other functions that we look for, but it does us better if they're on our ICIP plan. So Eldon's right, it may not get funded, or it may get funded from a different source.
Yes.
But that doesn't change the plan of that priority. And that way, like for us, or a PD example that needs recurring equipment every so often, it may get met this year, but we need to put it down, 2 or 3 years down the road as that cycle, so that we can keep getting the equipment that we need.
Oh, and cyclic stuff? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
That's water, even when we start getting some of the water, keep asking.
Sure.
Always doing something better to do.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Well, dude, I don't know if I'm re-asking Owen's question, but if something is turned down one year, is there a better chance of it happening the next year? For instance, our trash transfer station. I mean, we have a great need for that, but it was turned down in the last request.
Yeah. I'm going to say yes, and sometimes. re-ask the question. If it gets turned down to, yes, okay. So for some grants, okay, for some grants, if you apply for the grant and you get, I'm going to go to your credit score analogy now.
Okay.
So in some cases, when you put in for the grant, that grant application itself is given a score, kind of like your credit score, right? Or maybe your need score, but however you want to look at it. And everything considered, when you go in, you compete with the other municipalities and you do not get that grant. Yes, apply it for the next year, but because you didn't get it, your score goes higher. And then the person who did get the grant, they're going to skip a year on some grants, and then their score is going to come in a little bit lower, but that moves you up.
To add
So-
to that, I would say that from what I think our legislators do kind of want to know that we're asking for a consistent same thing until we get it.
Yes.
I think everybody's mentality on that is agreement on. If we ask for something one year, we didn't get any funding from anywhere else for it. We look like we don't look like we know what we're asking.
There's gonna be times where your priorities are gonna get changed. Sure. Just because of the circumstances.
Yeah.
But, being consistent in your list and not just changing everything around year to year, in my opinion, would help your ranking as far as when they look back. Because I've looked back at some of the previous ICIP requests. And some of the things that were ranking up there, top 3 or 4, the next year, even though we didn't get them, we didn't even have them up there.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
So-
That one. I can't really speak that one.
Make sure we didn't.
I can tell you from experience, legislators will look at this and they've actually made comments of, well, we didn't get Portales anything because their ICIP wasn't right or something, or they didn't ask for enough. The other thing I've heard is, well, they're asking for 159 million for this. You know, I think if we break stuff down and prioritize it, we can probably get, okay, we might not get 159, but if they can fund 10 million or 5 million on a specific project and get that knocked out.
Yeah, especially on capital outlay,
Yes.
right? Capital outlay is only going to be available. It's going to fluctuate, and some years are going to be better than others. Some are going to be really big, some might not be much at all, and we have to be able to adapt to those types of things
Absolutely, and so
as applicable.
past, we've been by the key part, flying by the key part. You know, at the last minute, we're doing ICIP. And I like the city manager's plan where we're gonna start talking ICIP basically after this one's submitted. Start talking about
Yeah.
the next year's and just keep that plan flowing throughout the year instead of trying to plan everything in to make sure we have all our ducks in a row.
Yeah,
And talking to legislators is one of the biggest things, because if you constantly talk to them about the same issue, they'll finally be clicking
Yes.
in their heads, and okay, they really need this stuff. So, but, you know, we have to actually, the council, it has to be the mayor, even some of the department heads have been out there just hitting them, you know. Every chance they get, they talk to them about it, and eventually they'll get us the funding.
Yeah.
So,
now ICIP by its nature doesn't have any money associated with it. It's not going to give you any money. We can be great at it, fill it out all day long, but it's a static tool. Well, not exactly static, but it doesn't, in and of itself does not do anything. But it's our plan, and we're showing that we have a plan going forward. These are the things that we've identified, racked and stacked, and put together as an inclusive team. And yay, verily, this is what we plan on working on. So it's important to have that on there, correct? And racked and stacked to the best of our ability, so that when someone does feel like giving us some money and we put in the right grant applications, et cetera, and they look at this, they go, is a check and balance. Is it on the ICIP? Yes. Is it in the correct format? It is. That clears them to the next level so that they can, you know, move on and make a decision to grant us some money that we said we needed ahead of time. So it's not just, it kind of is almost assurance for the money grantors, if you will, that we're not just looking around for someone that has money and goes, oh, they have money, let's go find something that we can get some of that money for. We put a viable need up there, we're tracking it, and it's a community and employee and city hall based tool that we put out ahead of time. So as almost a declaration, we need this. So when it's available, we're going to try to match the two things. And the better we do it, the more we'll get. We just will. We're just going to get better at it, and it will. Like Pat was saying, our plan is within 90 days after submitting this on October 3rd, within 90 days, we're going to have our first 25-26 ICIP meeting, the working group, and the town hall. And you'll have town halls building up to this. I look at this as a gap year. We're building the team. You know, we're going for the World Series. We're going for we're going to make a team that's going for the what's the big football game? And Super Bowl, right? We got. I don't watch sports too much, but I know it's around February. We're building that team, and we're running those plays over and over, so that we're going to win a pennant. We'll win our league, national or American, whatever it is. I think that's baseball. But we got to get through that first. We win that, and then we get into the series, or we get into the Super Bowl. Okay. Right now, we got to deal with this and get this one as good as we can get it. But then we're moving forward full speed to be really good at it. And we're just going to get better going forward. I have two questions over here.
We have to stay on how they're getting chosen once we get funded these monies. Does it come just from the council, or is Public Works kind of making that decision? Because my idea is that each board should be listing the roads that are top priority down to every road that needs to be fixed. And then at that point, then we should be sharing the love with each ward. That way, we only have so much money in a year, right? So only so many roads can be done. So, not just doing 1 year all Ward A or all Ward B, but having maybe Ward A, Ward B, Ward C, one have like the road done.
I think that's a technique.
Yeah.
I think that's a technique, and I don't think it's a bad technique. What's on the table right now that I'm working with Mr. Chavez, and keep in mind, we don't have a public works director, so we're working on hiring that key agent. That's going to be a big game changer there. But the technique you described is a technique, and I don't think it's a bad one. Mr. Chavez, right now, I'm working with him, and we're talking about developing a category of road status, if you will. So like a category A road is a decent road. Category B is decent, but it has some problems. Category C is, you don't want to carry a hot cup of coffee while you're driving down it. Category D is you probably want to avoid it, something like that. And then looking at tackling, regardless of what ward they're in, looking at tackling the category D roads and the C roads. So you might see road work in different places from time to time. And that's where, when Mr. Gallegos was saying, break these down into sections, category D road probably wouldn't be on there, but we might declare, 33 miles of paved unsafe road in Portales, and identify the streets and go after the unsafe, the medium safe, the pretty safe, and the safe roads in that order. Now, roads are a specific kind of thing, right? You're never going to be finished doing the roads. It's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. We're going to start on the west side of the Golden Gate Bridge. We're going to start painting. We're going to get to the east side. I think it runs north-south. I'm just all over the map today. So you're going to go to the south side, and when you're done, you pack up your bucket, you go back over to the north side, and you start painting again. Roads, I don't care where you are, where you could be in Minneapolis, you could be in Dallas. You're never going to finish the roads. It's just roads or roads or roads. And we have to, and I think that your technique that you're describing is a viable technique. I think it's achievable, but I think there's several techniques. And right now, to answer your question, that's not our plan. Our plan's more about identifying by the worst roads to the next not so bad and all the way up. That's kind of our plan of attack right now. Does that answer your question? Okay.
And some of the roads, have much higher traffic than the others. So they're gonna wear out much faster. And some of them, like in my ward, for example, are not as traveled, some like around here around the Warrenburg and stuff, that's a much more traveled area. Because they're going to schools. So I think that's like influence too.
I think it does.
They don't last.
We're not there yet, but I think that's part of the formula, right? So right. Yeah, so we're not there yet, but I think whatever we come up with is going to take a few factors in on how you go to a category. And I'm just making this up right now, but a category A, B, C, or D type of road. But to be able to break it down into a manageable type of overall concept, but sub projects that pass the legal, moral, and ethical test, right? Because a lot of times on these grants or projects, you can't do a building right? You can't secure money for part of a project and then you secure more money, and especially on federal stuff. So it has to be clear and definitive and all that. And then there's a little bit of due diligence with that. And you have to pass that legal, moral, ethical kind of test. And that's gonna be not easy, but we're gonna get it done. We're gonna figure it out. Okay.
Back to basics committee this year, and we had the departments come in and tell us what their needs were so that we understood what they needed, how we needed to prioritize, and how we needed to staff rank. I think with the collaboration that we did throughout the city and the committee, it allowed us to really look at our plan and place things strategically in there to where maybe there's going to be possibility for funding and we can actually see a clearer picture and what the needs were. Because sometimes, we see whatever's on the list for number 4, and we see that and we're like, well, what was it? But when the department heads actually come in and explain that to us, there was one that you had a question on, and it was under fire, it was for maintenance.
Yeah, it wasn't figured out.
No, it was the one that everybody.
I didn't know what the piece of equipment was.
For that, so once we collaborated, we went back to basics, we had them come in, they explained what their needs were, what the project was, so that we had a better understanding, and I think that actually helped us in the long run, and going back to just taking it back just a little bit and doing that, I think we're gonna be better off for it.
And here's something that I learned today. Now, it would come through the ICIP, right? So the ICIP having it on there would be an entry point to get access to a specific grant. But there's some of these grants that EPCOG works on and helps champion for us, but also the messenger. So we declare messenger as an alternate messenger, but a person actually goes up there and provides testimony in person and says, this is why we need this and why. And this is all part of a very elaborate construct. And we have to, I'm going to go back to what I said, we have to get good at it. And this is the first step, a town hall, community engagement. I want to see these seats filled. I want to see the expert speakers talking about what and the why and explaining the fire department or the pieces of equipment and the understanding, from the citizens and so on, and understand that what they're doing is connected to what they're doing is connected to what they're doing is connected to what they're doing and at the grantor level. And this is the first step. But I want to see it more filled going forward as we go into the 25, 26. I want to see that. And an important thing, like last night, most of you were at the city council. One thing we kind of didn't address, but I meant to, but I thought it was important. Those notices of intent to go forward to secure those grants. In the grant package, it says, if you receive the money by 2026, will this project be finished by 2028? And in all 3 instances, we circled this. And I think that's something that we have to track. And I'm not sure that we've been doing that because I haven't been here. But as we go through these processes, I want to track that too. So we all have knowledge of it and we go through different things. And this is past the town halls and this is past the ICIP point, but it's the trackability point, this transparency and that honesty for both sides to understand. Yeah, we might see the headline news, see the headlines or at least the article. Santa Fe is granted X amount of money for Eastern New Mexico. Portales gets that amount of money. And it's kind of like a big lightning storm, thunderstorm, right? The flash and then the bang. And there's a delay in time between the two. So the headlines, I granted this much money to Portales. That's fiscal year FY 2025. Flash, the bang time, the thunder, that's when the shovels are breaking the ground, but that isn't until 2028. But sometimes in between the two, if we haven't kept this going, this interaction here, people are like, I read the headlines, where'd the money go? The money's there. It's happening. The lightning's real, the thunder's real. It's just the time in between the two. And we have to keep people involved and we have to be good stewards of these types of things and remind them that what we're all doing together is making a difference. And that flash they saw in 2025 is going to make the boom, the thunder in 2026 or 7 or 8. And we knew that to begin with. And we all have to keep that message going. Otherwise, we lose some faith sometimes. And it's hard to go to work thinking, what did I do? Did I do anything? I'm not seeing the fruits of my labor, but they're happening. We have to be patient, but we also have to remind our citizens that the lightning we saw is still there You're gonna hear the thunder. It's just not time yet, because it takes some time. Okay? Any questions for me? Because I'm gonna turn this over to Pat. Pat's gonna kind of take you through this. If there's questions of me, that's great. It's not so structured. It's not a city council meeting. It's just a town hall. We can talk. You can talk over each other if you want to. You can do all of that. It's just do your thing. Now's your chance. Can't do it on Tuesday. No? Okay. Thank you.
I think it's working, so. All right, currently, this is the list that I received this morning of the ICIP list. I don't think it's quite the updated one that y'all did when y'all first. After you guys talked. But these are some of the. We'll go over the top 10 right now of what's listed on here.
Do we have that one? Then we have. It's a lot of trouble to narrow that down.
I looked for it. And
We have it. I don't have it.
Yep.
Right now, I don't think. Let me look.
We had a lot of change.
This is the one after the first one, but I never got the second one from the second meeting last week.
Let me see if I got anything here.
Cause I know some of them, they're right there at the top are not there. Where we arranged. I don't, there was the things we moved around, that's what I'm saying.
So-
Down to 15.
In lieu of having the latest one, now, with the updated one, I don't think the content changed. The content got moved around. So how about we do this as salvage, because we don't find this at specific time. Let's kind of go through these for the public. We're not gonna go through them all, right? So there's 2027. Keep in mind, this is a 5-year plan. This would be 2027 plans. So Pat, if you could, we can just kind of take a look at these. Look at the titles, right? Under the project title.
Okay.
Look at the total projected costs. And I'm talking right now to the people. Take a look at these. And then.
Sorry, sir, for the recording.
So take a look at the project title. Look at it, look at what category it's in, and then maybe the per annum or the bottom line or whatever. If it doesn't make sense, then ask a question there for clarity. And that at least, it doesn't really matter because we still have to continue to rack and stack some of these. So go through and take a look and ask the question. Like some of them I was looking at and I was like, I don't really know what that means. In my as an example, can you scroll over to where the animal shelter is and talks about animal shelter security? So when I look at that, the city manager, I don't know what that means. So this is my opportunity to go, Kelly, can you explain that? Because I have no idea what that means. And then Kelly says, yes, absolutely, because I still don't know what it means.
Being built, so we got a quote for security cameras. We have controlled medications, we have animals that sometimes we seize for court cases that are considered evidence, that type of stuff. So just cameras that show you all views of the new animal shelter and the old animal shelter as well.
One of those things that everybody needs to know, that last meeting that was made very clear, and I didn't understand before that last meeting, was that if some of these things aren't shovel ready, if it's not something we have quotes for and we're ready to do, then we don't want them up there because they're not gonna get, you've got to have them shovel ready. So part of this, Kelly's moved up. Some of those moved up because she has quotes and we could do the work.
Yeah, that is a great point. And that goes back to kind of my Little League analogy. You got to know the rules. And we discuss these and we're here together in a town hall. And again, I want this thing flooded. I want people asking questions. I want the experts to go, and I even want the experts to learn what they need in the right order, right? So let's say we're gonna build a brand new city hall. I'm not saying that, guys. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, let's say we were going to, right? What's that? So let's say we were going to. Build a city hall on here. We want to put an A&E, right? We want to put the architect and the engineering design up on here first. Because I can't be shovel ready without that. And under that A&E, I want permitting and stuff like that done. I want to contact an engineering firm, see what that costs, talk to the engineering firm, tell them what I want, and then get an okay that they could do it, or 2 or 3. Then I want to put that on there. So when I'm granted that money, I can pull the trigger on that and I can get that going. And then when that's done, I can put, and I have that in hand, and we've already, maybe we need to secure the land. So the next thing is secure the land for a new town hall. Maybe that's next, and so on and so forth, until we're ready to actually get a construction company to do what the A&E said to do, and the permits are kind of ready, and so on and so forth. And then we get that done. Yes, ma'am.
Phase 1 would be done, like the planning would be done in 2027. That's what we need for that project. Then say we're gonna go to the engineering and 28, that's the funding for that. And then it'll show us that at the far right-hand corner, total amount not yet funded. So our total project, what we need based off of numbers, real time, you know, and of course, inflation comes into play with all that, so those numbers may change, but it's just a guide. And then, so we know what the total project is gonna be, and then what we need for the phases throughout the years to get it complete in the next five years.
But yeah, and here's another thing. Let's say a grantor comes up and we say we want a ANI, we want the design, the engineers to develop the blueprints, all of that stuff for a new facility, right? And that goes up there, and it's $2 million. And they grant us $2 million. That money is obligated, then it's executed within the time frame. A lot of these are 2 years. Obligation execution within 2 years. So we get that up there and it's done. Phase 1 is done. It's more likely we're going to get money for phase 2 because we're on the scoreboard. No one likes to give away and waste $2 million for a design, but now we're ready for the next phase. So it's more likely. Now we got 2 things in the queue, but it's taken 2 or 3 years. That's sometimes just the way it goes. And so we're at year 3 or 4, and we've got the design, we've got the permits, and we bought the land. What's the likelihood that someone's going to grant us money for the next phase, even though that figure is growing exponentially? Because now we're talking about time and material. You're invested. It's more likely that we're going to get that money. And we have to learn to play that game. We have to remember the flash, the lightning happens, and then the thunder happens. There's a dead time in between that seems like you lost it, but you didn't. We have to learn to be patient with these things and get them going. But really the name of the game is to continue to do this. It's only going to seem like slack time. It's only going to seem like quiet time until it starts rolling. And if we're good at this, which we are, we're going to be better. Once it starts rolling, it's going to continue to roll because it's going to be a project after a project after a project. But if we look at this as lockstep, we do one thing and then we stop. And then we do one thing and we stop. It's years and years between those one things. We have to get in the habit of doing a lot of things in increments. And once the excavators start, they continue to go from one site to another site because now we're in process. And objects in motion remain in motion. Yeah. And that's where we need to get. And this is a step in the process. Okay. So we have to break it down like Pat said. We have to be shovel ready, like you said. Shovel ready isn't always a shovel in the dirt. Sometimes it's an engineering firm ready to start doing CAD designs. I don't know if you can really say CAD designs because it's computer-aided designs. You do CAD stuff, right? But you know what I mean. Something like that, yes, yes. And we have to break it down. And according to ICIP, it's all of our jobs. The public involved with doing this. We need the feedback. No, go by all means.
So that's part of the reason, just For some, that's part of the reason number 8 is where it's at, because Antoinette has that ready to go, you know, and she's in the process of getting all the quotes and all that, so we'll be able to do that. So a lot of things that we kind of wanted higher, we don't have to the state room to put them. That makes sense. But we have,
They have to be on here.
they're on.
You want them on here, right? You want them on here. Because if something breaks, changes, not breaks in a bad way, but something breaks loose, funding comes available. Someone says, I really was interested in doing this, da, 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 da. It's on the board. If it's on the board, we're very quickly to secure the funding for a big project than it not being on the board. Right? So it has to stay up there.
Well, if we keep our legislators up to speed on all this, when they're doing their negotiation for the bills with the other legislators up there, you'll look at a lot of, they put all the extra into each of these bills, and there's enough money in there that one of our little projects might come through, it can get there too, if they're aware. It's all part of that wheeling and dealing negotiations.
Sometimes they knock off number 8, number 9, or number 10, because it's small enough number they can.
Or a lot here.
Yeah, or even farther.
Yes. Yeah, by all means, yes.
Yeah, if I could make a recommendation, this has impacted me, and I show up to these things and do this quite often. Is taking those things and putting them in everyday language that the citizens could understand. And I'm gonna give you an example is, the improvements up there that I saw a while ago in the millions. Or I think it was up a little bit. And there we go. Total project cost on well field improvements of $167 million taking place by 2031. DBS&A projected 278 million over a 20-year term. So why did that, and this may not be the venue to talk about that, but why did that jump so drastically in that first 5 years? And have we done any study that suggests that that well field warrants $167,000 investment? Because it is struggling in many ways. So
I don't know. And I don't know is a powerful answer. It's not an informative answer, but it's a powerful answer, right? Because it lends to research and other things. So that's perfectly fine. But I look at that and I don't find fault with it. I know that there's a reason for it. And when you ask a question like that, that gives us something to work with, right? Something to work with and go find out. Now, I would also say that if we're looking from now to 2031, I mean, that's 6-7 years, stuff like that. There's some increase in time and material and, you know, rough orders of magnitude and things like that. I don't know if it's that much, but there's probably a document somewhere when someone's talking about these, because it says City of Port Tallis Wellfield improvements. I don't know by looking at it that specifically means Blackwater. I don't know if it specifically means Sand Hills. I don't know if it specifically means buying property and putting new wells somewhere. And if we're talking about that, then that number is probably appropriate. You know, those types of things.
We have struggled to get explanations that we could understand. Prime example, the Lime Street, we have had 6 or 7 explanations of that. A good chunk of them have contradicted themselves or not been explained to the degree that even we could understand it. So I know people that don't go to all those meetings are also struggling with understanding stuff. We had some sector of our city that could.
Yeah, I get it. So, on 167,550,000, whatever it is, $632. That's, I'm hearing what you're saying. I don't know if there's ever going to be a way to simplify that one down to an easy digestible number, right? But if I go back to say Kelly and the animal control and the things, I get what you're saying. I think that's viable. Now, on a huge project, when we're talking about out years and things, I think those projects by themselves are they probably merit occasionally a briefing or a town hall or a subject matter expert interface with people who want to know, right? I think along those lines. When I look at that type of figure, when I look at something as as complex as the well fields that we own, I think it's hard for most people to process and break it down into a simplified thing. And I'm not trying to discount what you're saying. I'm saying I think we have to, well, I was going to say drill down in that, but it's bad because we're talking about wells. I think we need to take deeper dives sometimes in those, and very informative dives for the people who want to learn about it. But
Initial impact is contradictory to what people previously.
I just got on the ground. I don't know what you're told. What I can tell you is going forward, we make it more easy to digest. I mean, if I can come in 8 weeks, 6 weeks and kind of figure it out, then we together can find a message, even if we have to cartoon it out. And I don't say that lightly. I like cartoons because my brain just works well with them, and cartoon it out so it makes sense, you know? We can do that. So it kind of makes sense. And it takes some of the mystery out of it. Now, how did I do that? I mean, I'm not an expert at all. I'm a layman in this, but I had to go out and drive or be escorted into the well field and then shown, like, yay, verily, this is what a well looks like. It didn't look like what I thought it looked like. And I thought it was gonna be like this. I was like that. But I had to be there to see it. And then they had to show me where the lines go underwater and where the electronic transmissions go. And then I started to get it. And we had to drive 6.2 miles over to the other thing where the water goes out of the thing, into the thing, over to the thing, stays in the thing, gets out of the thing, goes down to the thing, and then I drink it. But I couldn't understand it until then. And ta-da. But I get your message, and what I can not promise you, but promise to consider is we will make these messages easier to digest. But it starts with somebody asking the question, what does it mean? What's the Portales drainage improvements? What does that mean to me? And somebody asking.
You actually, Florida, they sat in on the same meetings that you hold. That's what would make it well, if we could understand why.
So it's by my side sometimes, I'll tell you today, I probably embarrass him from time to time, but I looked at some people, I said, and I think Chris will back me up on this. I said, talk to me like I'm 9. I don't know what you're talking about. Talk to me like I'm 9. Visualize it for me. Draw it out. Stick man. I don't care. I need to understand it when I'm coming away from this. So I'm not going to get insulted. Talk to me at an elementary level so I can process it. That's my best thinking, So he probably gets tired of hearing me say stuff like that. But that's how I think, and I can understand it. But I walk away with a pretty high level of knowledge on a complex problem by being able to do that. People probably feel I'm too direct, but that's what it takes for me to learn. I just need you to tell me like it's a chore.
Stand up people, they'll start talking. It's mostly revolves around officials. You got ICIP, you gotta do the PER, then you're gonna go to the, we're just sitting there. Slow down. What does that stand for?
I would argue in the scholarly sense. I'm not arguing with you, right? My argument is this is what we were doing tonight. We started with what is an ICIP? What are the words for ICIP? And I'll tell you, you're not wrong. I had a city employee today say, I sat in that meeting all night long and people were talking about stuff. I've been doing this for years and I don't even know what y'all are talking about. And she said the most important part of the meeting was the recap, because then it made sense. And I think all of us have to remember that. All of us have to remember that, and we certainly will, as we're learning to work together and bringing products together and pushing them forward and things like that, and soliciting your input. Comments like yours are priceless. You can talk to me all day long about this stuff, but I don't know what it is because you didn't break it down in my language. And that's something we'll work on. And that's why you're here tonight. And that's what town halls do. There's no gavels. Okay, so I would ask you again, we don't want to belabor this. I mean, we'll stay a reasonable amount of time to go over this, but I would challenge you to go scroll through these a little bit, stop when one doesn't make sense. Like, I don't really get this one. And I don't know if there's anybody talk on that, but the behavioral health facility, does that mean our contribution as a city? Does that mean the total $45 million? I don't know what that means. I went to a meeting on it, but I don't know what it means.
On there for the governor is great scope of the funding for what's going on there. Goal is to, so right now they're working on the triage center, and the
rest of the inpatient facility is still needing to. You finish getting
Yeah.
funding for this.
The way they explained it the other night, that last meeting was. It needs to be on everybody who's participating in ICIP at a pretty high level. So we can complete that project like we talked about a while ago, we already started this project.
This is the 16 beds in Clovis, right? Yeah. Yeah.
It's for now, it's at
Yeah.
30 with all the other communities involved in it.
Well, and he, for TJ, correct me if I'm wrong, when we first entered into the agreement, we can have it at our top end. For that first year. And that's why it's come down a little bit. And then some of this that was funded that we contributed was based off of the opioid settlement.
Yeah.
There's been no city general fund budget or tax dollars.
Right.
Spent towards that. We pledged as a city council, as a community, along with the other communities, the opioid funds to help fund that. So.
Kind of in the top 10, and the governor would look at probably to fund that project.
For a year.
So that governor's using this. The consortium as the template for the state.
But that takes explanation, right? Because that's a for-profit, that building's a for-profit building. When that company who says, yeah, really, this is what we do, and they've been doing it in other states and they're successful and they've been making money via insurance, it's for profit. So it's almost Socratic, right? I kind of know what it's about, but I'm asking the question because it doesn't make sense when I look at it like that. I see, the behavioral health facility, 0, 5,000, 250,000, et cetera, to 45 million. And this is where I think it's important for people to ask clarity questions, and to get clarity. And we go, okay, and then we rack it and stack it appropriately, because I don't think we'll ever put any money into that. I don't think we'll ever put a dime into that, because I think the way it's written actually is, if they're not profitable and there's a gap, that we will provide a percentage of opioid money, but only a slight percentage, because the other municipalities that receive opioid money will also put into percentages, but Clovis will put in the largest percentage only if they don't cover their margins. And then we'll help them meet that. Yes. Yeah.
Program fits within that, because it is providing the services needed for the area.
Now, the opioid money concept, and I'm not going to talk about opioid money, I'm just going to talk about opioid money as a funding stream. These are important things to know, right? Because people like Liliana Rivera, Miss Rivera, the backside of this at our level should be, these are all the things we're targeting to do. Now, we're not going to target the behavioral health center, but let's just use that as an example. Ms. Rivera should have a list of what kind of funding could get that done. Because you saw in some of those slides, loans or grants via EPCOG, Water Trust Board money, capital outlay, all those are possibilities, not specific to any one thing. They're possibilities. So when we have something that we need to accomplish, people like Ms. Rivera have to have their playbook of what could accomplish this and how do we get after that. And when she recognizes which ones qualify for which ones have lower interest rates or no interest rates, which ones have low match or no matches, then we champion those first, and we put our grant writers on those and our project managers on those to go after that money. Because of course, some grants are going to be specific to our top 1, 2, or 3, but others are just going to look and say, is it on your list? And we're going to say yes. And it might be down here in number 19, but we need it or we want it. There's a kind of grant that comes along, and we want to champion that because we can afford that grant. We can match that grant if it's required, or if it's a low interest loan, we can afford that loan. We're going to go after it like that. So all of this ties in, it all goes together, and it's all part of the process. And if we don't know how to do it now, we're going to know how to do it in 6 months, and we're going to be real good at it. And we're going to win the Little League World Series when they play the Super Bowl for the Stanley Cup. Canadians will be proud. Okay, so just take a look at these, ask questions as you have them, and ask any questions for general understanding. I think we've canvassed this pretty well.
If anybody has a recommendation, Rustin, Phil, Mike Drackler, and myself, Veronica Borges, Veronica, are all on, the committee, so prior to us actually posting, we will review these again at council. So if you have any recommendations, that final council meeting is where we'll kind of do our final prioritization as a whole. So we'll take those comments into consideration. If anybody has any.
I think we have to do this by the 23rd, based on the timeline.
Because we have to have this in for submission and there's a new program and we have to crunch that stuff in there. So we're gonna have to do some work. Yeah, so the timelines, we're gonna have to get this done pretty quick. So we just have a couple of weeks to 3 weeks, I think, to get this to be approved by council. And then that'll give us enough time to get it in the database. So we're gonna have to do some data entry stuff on a new system that we just don't know because no one's really seen it. I think it just came out. And then we'll have it in by the 3rd. So if there's any guesswork on when we're gonna do what you just said, it's the 23rd on that deal. So, yeah. Bring your coffee.
Where did it work?
Well, down to the fact it's not shovel ready, so I think it's.
So on this one, it's on number 7, but I think on the final draft for the committee got moved down.
Let's talk about waste transfer system, right? Should waste transfer system be on here or should be a phase of the waste transfer system? Should we think this through and it's a A&E and a design?
Well, we got new trash trucks coming, but if we don't do something about the transfer station, same shape of work.
Okay.
We're gonna have line trucks that are still hauling trash all the way to Clovis instead of.
Yeah, wasting a great deal of time every day just driving back and forth.
I got the problem. I understand the problem. The solution is what I'm waiting for.
I don't know if this fits in there. Is there a way to put recycle roll-offs on one of these lists that would help us get to the
Yeah,
waste transfer station?
That's a good question. So we can put the Magic Kingdom on this list. Okay, we can put airboat races on the list. Okay, so what I'm trying, and I'm not poking fun at you. What I'm saying is when we together think it's a thing that needs to go up there, then we look at what that thing is. And then we look at, does it take a design? What are the phases to get that thing? Is it a design? Then we get the design on the list and we get phases, et cetera, on those types of things. So yes, is the answer to your question. And
This is the top thing that I. Last year, our waste transfer station was up to top 5.
okay,
They did it, but now all of a sudden it drops down to 20 something.
okay.
So whenever somebody looks at that, they're gonna go, well, apparently they didn't need the waste transfer station.
I don't know if they're gonna look at it like that.
Because this is actually what we need.
The entire.
Like, I can tell you, talking to the senators and legislatures up there, they look at your top 5. They don't even probably look at that.
If you're talking about capital outlay, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, whenever it comes to, when they start allocating money to different cities, they look at what they've got to use, their money. And then they start plugging in things that fit to come up to that amount. And it may be number 15 on your list, but if it equals 150,000 that they've got left to give, that's what they're gonna give you.
On capital outlay, I agree with what you're saying.
So for the transfer station, I've been to a lot of meetings, so I can't remember which one. Wasn't there discussion of actually looking to maybe do a landfill at Portales instead? But we could- And that was, cause I know the concern was brought that what if Clovis stops taking our trash, we have a transfer station.
Yep.
Maybe it might be easier for a landfill. So a bunch of meetings, I don't remember which meetings was discussed at in depth, but I know that was
Right.
brought up as a
I-
possibility instead of a transfer station.
Like I said, it's a town hall and everybody's welcome to talk about whatever they want to talk about. But what I feel like if I'm a moderator, and that's kind of the position I just kind of took. Well, we're starting to get into a solid waste management specific discussion, and we can do that. But I would just remind us that we're here to talk about ICIP and where it is on the list. And certainly, you know, we can argue that point. That's why we're here and we can talk about it. But wherever I'm sorry, and I didn't say that to shut you down. I just want to remind us, you know, if I'm kind of moderating, we're kind of moving to something else. But on something like the transfer station, we have to ask ourselves the question, is it shovel ready? And are we asking for the transfer station or the design of a transfer station? To be honest with you, I don't know what a transfer station, I mean, I know what the words are. I know what it kind of means, but I don't know what it looks like. I don't know where it would go. It would go in the current, into the convenience center, those kind of things. These are questions that I'm going to ask a city manager. And then how am I going to break that down? What does it look like at the end of the day? Does it look like a lot of employees? Does it look like new Bobcats? Does it look like a concrete leveled out structure that's large and we break trash down into recyclables and things? I'm not sure yet. So I don't know, but that's not to despair. That's not to belittle anybody's thing. I just haven't processed that one yet. Yes, sir.
They did have enough information, and I'm not looking at that information, but they had an estimate on it, and it was turned in on the ICIP, fairly high rated with an estimate in previous years.
Okay.
So I would think that they had some either quote or some type of design to come up with that estimate.
I would too. If there's a dollar figure here, I would say you're 100% right. Yeah.
I would portray that decision as on the total cost, not including the A&E and all and if I remember correctly.
Wasn't that something that the sheriff put together a few years ago?
No,
That was what happened.
this was something that Steve and his assistant worked on at that time.
Yeah.
But I thought the timing was in.
And we got a couple of days. Let's go find it. I mean, that's easy. We're in a town hall. This is again, this is a city. This is not a city council meeting. But what I would say is, if it means construction, if it means tractors, if it means stuff like that, it means we have to have a design. And if design's already there, that's cool. If design's not on there, then the design goes on here. And the transfer station design can go way up there because the design's probably not going to be as expensive as the actual facility. And we're back into that quality square, right? That square one of quality of shovel ready to get us ready to be shovel ready for the next phase. And I think that's why these kind of meetings are so important, because we break it down and we start to understand the thing at smaller bites. Do we need the transfer station here, or do we need the design for the transfer station here?
Well, the fact that we've got a couple of new trucks, is gonna help. Be able to move that count a little bit, but that design, I feel like needs to still be up there.
Well, and the thing, and I'll tell you why it moved down because we were told we wouldn't have time to get a quote for that A&E for this ICIP cycle. And we're not gonna get a quote for that design in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
We can try.
And yeah, I'm all for it. We can get it.
We have till 23:59. We have until 23:59 hours. That, you know, 11:59 on the 22nd of September. All right, yeah, to have this ready for a vote in front of the city council. So we can push that right down to the last minute. And like I said, I'm not happy about it, but this is a building year. We're not great at doing this right now. We're gonna get great. But we're not great at doing it right now. We're not bad. We're just not great, and we're gonna get great. So we have until the last, really, actually, we have until, you know, the 23rd before we put it before you, but we got to get on the agenda and stuff like that. And we can change some of the stuff in there. We know that. We just can't change the times and some of the stuff. So we're gonna, yeah, if we will take a look at that. I understand what you're saying. We might not be able to get it, but maybe we can. And then we can bump it up. If it's a requirement, and this is something, guys, you're going to learn about me, and I hope that you meld together on this. Requirements never change unless you fill the requirement. If it's a requirement, it's a requirement. That's just the way it goes. And if we put it up here as something we need, it doesn't go away unless the city itself changes and it negates that requirement or you fulfill the requirement. So if it's a bona fide requirement, we always have to work on it and get towards getting that. Sometimes technology bumps them out. Sometimes a new super piece of equipment does two things instead of one, and that negates it. But it remains a requirement. So if it's a requirement for transfer station, we'll do do our due diligence to see if we can get a design, because sometimes designs, people don't always have to go make one. They're on the shelf. Army Corps of Engineers has thousands of designs. They're on the shelf. You just buy it from the Corps if you can. Other companies that specialize in these types of things, they have the designs. They just need to see a geographic footprint that has the permits, and they'll just go like, yeah, it fits in like that. And then you buy the design, so then you figure out how to connect it or whatever. So sometimes starting from scratch is very difficult. Sometimes they just say, we got a design for that. It can work. What's your soil made out of? Are you on the side of a mountain? No, we're not. We're kind of flat. Is the dirt or is it granite rock? No, it's sand. Okay, not that hard. Okay. Not saying it's easy. It's just we're not as okay.
Saw a machine this weekend, we brush streets.
Pothole fixer?
This was a huge, I don't know how much propane they were using in front of us that, but
Oh.
this mechanism would go through there and heat up the pavement,
Okay.
chew it up,
Yeah.
heated it again.
Yeah.
Melted it all together, and laid it back down,
It fixed the road as it drove, didn't it?
using the same material.
Yes.
Pulling up, they might have been adding a little bit of tar to it, but the surface of that road that they were leaving behind, just like brand new pavement. And they were moving on.
I've seen. I haven't seen the machine you saw, but I saw a machine do it. It eats the road as it drives over it, and it poos out brand new road.
Oh, man. Our streets, could we just go in there and just completely repair? And I mean, they weren't having to pay. It was basically the propane and whatever maintenance of the machine, because they weren't adding material. I think they had a tank on there that they could add. If it got to be a little too dry on the mixture or something.
Yeah, I bet they probably had some material in there. They probably shoveled more in as they went, but yeah, I've seen the machine. I've seen one of those. Can someone write down the thing? Because I'm not taking notes right now. The thing, Pat, can you write down about the design for? Okay, good. Thanks. Okay. What else we got? Okay. Any comments from city side employees?
I
Public?
just want to reiterate what Veronica said. If you got ideas, talk to one of the three of us and tell us what they are before we meet.
Yep.
I already got that one. Well.
Okay.
The only thing that I have to say on back to the transfer station is we've got to figure out, like you said, the design. We got to figure out what it is we want. I think there's quite possibly 4 different ideas in this room, at least 4 different ideas of what a transfer station is going to look like.
That's a fair comment. Yeah.
I think if we're going to drill down on it, we got to come up with it's going to be a recycle center, just a transfer station where we load it up and roll off, whatever the case is, we got to figure out what that is.
Well, what I'd like to know as far as design is, can we build it as purely a transfer to begin with? But, and then the next year ask for the recycle.
Yeah.
In the next year.
Yeah,
That's what I was gonna see, but that's far good. Eliminate our problem.
that's all good.
Then let's get on recycle and some other things that. Because people might, we like to recycle.
And so that's exactly what I'm saying. We've got to figure out what that first step is.
Yeah.
What is, and then wherever we put it, we've got to make sure that we can build on it, that and continue to grow. Right.
Okay.
I can't help but think there's the provision within the city of that already existed.
We need to look at that plan.
Because it was on the ICIP in a previous year. It Joe McVeigh has some knowledge about that, because when they told me that the ICIP got turned down. So I don't think they just would have pulled a number without any kind of some type of plan.
No, that's a great point. But and to that point, perhaps that's where we start and look at that and go back and say, is this what we think we want? Right? But we got to do it fast and decide where it goes. I like Mr. Rackler's comment. Start with something that can build to something else. Because what I'm kind of hearing, honestly, is a solid waste management facility. Okay. Transfer station, because you're going to have to, because I'm hearing some comments about different things. And I think the transfer station is just part of it.
Essentially driving semi truck loads instead of the trash truck 3 or 4 times a day.
Trash truck full of what, though?
Trash truck full of trash,
What's trash?
what they pick up from the dumpsters.
I would argue that's not trash. I'm not. Okay, let me just, because this is solid waste. This is a completely different topic, but let me tell you kind of what I think along these lines, right? My wife, beautiful girl, I love her to death. She says, Scott, take out the trash. And I go, Angela, this isn't trash. Separate all this stuff. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're making me take out this trash bag. And this milk jug over here is one thing, and these tin cans over here, aluminum cans, are another thing, and all that. And I really only got that much trash. Okay. And I started thinking about it. I went out to my dumpster and I looked in there, and the dumpster was mostly cardboard. It was mostly milk jugs. It was mostly a few tree branches and a few other things. There was very little non-commodity type refuse, dry waste, right? And I started thinking, I'm filling up these super expensive trash cans or trash trucks, taking them down to up to Clovis, over to Clovis. But really, there's only this much trash in the dumpster, and there's this much commodities. So I'm wearing out my very expensive trash trucks on these commodities. Why am I doing this? And when I start talking about recycling and people start going, you're from California. It's not about recycling the environment. It's about wearing out trash trucks. And if I'm putting cardboard in a cardboard place, I'm not saying to do this, so don't hate on me. Okay. But if you put the cardboard in the cardboard place, the aluminum cans in the aluminum can place, the plastic jugs in the plastic jug place, and the limbs and stuff in the lemon other thing place, I hardly fill up any of my trash trucks because I'm only taking actual solid waste.
That's to his point. And so that reduces the number of tips. If we could divert that, even though it's not a profit situation where so much of it, you would get a little bit of revenue from it, but additionally, you would save tips that are costing what, $42 a trash truck load?
It's a lot. It's in our budget, and it's more than we would normally think. Yeah. So I kind of argue, again, in a scholarly sense, not in the fighting sense, that a transfer station is some portion of all of that. And those trash trucks are going to last much longer. Those tipping fees are going to go way down. The commodities, although not super revenue producing, are going to kind of offset some of that thing. Okay, but that's a deep discussion on solid waste management that we need to dig into and figure out what it is that we want. In 2025, 26, maybe we want the transfer station, maybe we want the pad part of it first, but we're going to do it all. But we need to figure out what all is. But maybe we can get after this. Maybe we can get a design for a portion of that. And maybe we can start with what we think we had and see if we got that and go from there. Okay, Pat wrote it down. We're going to look at it and we're going to see what we got. Okay, what else we got? No one needs a motion to close.
The meeting outside.
Okay, hey, thank you for your time. I'm glad you're hearing us do more of this in the future. This is what it takes to get it all done. Thanks.